This podcast contains strong language and discussions about relationships, sex, and love. It may not be suitable for younger listeners. This is the Can't Keep My Mouth Shut podcast, and I am Nixalina. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of me. Yay! I'm really excited to do this one for two reasons. One, it's special for International Women's Day, which obviously is my favorite day of the year, but also it's an interview with a very, very epic lady who I've been trying to get in the studio for a few months now. And the episode is called Confessions of a Dominatrix. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Ashley.
Thanks for having me today.
My absolute pleasure. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm great. Quite excited to be doing this together with you.
I think it's going to be one of those episodes where we're all listening in like, what? I mean, I have quite a deep, extensive knowledge of this field, but I don't think I'm anywhere near you, okay? So, I mean, my listeners know I like my BDSM, I like my Dom something, but I am personally a submissive, and you are the Dom, right? So let's start off. I want it from you and your experience. Tell us, what is BDSM and Femdom?
I think if you just to look into the acronyms of what BDSM is, I mean, of course, on the surface level, it means bondage, dominance, masochism, and sadomasochism. But actually, if you look deeper into this, it's not just about kinky sex. It's not just about what we see on 50 Shades of Grey. It's actually a very multidisciplinary approach towards sex and relationships. And it's a full spectrum experience that's more than just skin deep, but going deeper and deeper into your motivations, your psychology, what turns you on, what you like and what you dislike. So maybe just let me give you a vanilla example. Like for example, cuddling. Many of us like to cuddle.
I love cuddling.
Yes, sex. And yes, the BDSM will actually go into the why do you like cuddling.
Right.
Of course, that's the hormonal effect about cuddling after sex. But for many people, cuddling is actually a means of intimacy, added intimacy, because I have seen you bare naked. I've seen you in your vulnerabilities doing sex. You're moaning, you're screaming, and then cuddling is a way that I've exposed all my vulnerabilities to you. That's why I like cuddling. Or for many other people, cuddling could just means that they lack intimacy or physical touch from their partners, from their parents. That's why they crave to be cuddled after sex. And just a simple act of cuddling has so many, many different motivations behind it.
Right.
And BDSM is about getting into that specific motivations of yours and playing into it. For example, let me give you a BDSM example right now. Shibari, rope bondage. Some people like it.
Right, explain Shibari. So it's the Japanese rope bondage, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So Shibari, it just means the tying of a person. It could be very intrinsic knots. It could be to immobilize somebody. It could be just to put somebody in a very vulnerable state. On the surface level of it, Shibari just looks like rope bondage, but you dive deep into the psychology behind it. Rope bondage, to some people, may actually mean that they like how it makes them feel vulnerable, it makes them feel helpless. And they like this kind of feeling of being helplessness, of being small in front of their dominant that turns them on. However, for some people, they actually like how rope hugs onto them. It makes them feel safe in front of their partner because they know that nothing wrong can go with them because their partner is around. And BDSM is just about that. It's going deeper into your psychology to understand the why and how and what turns you on. And I find that very interesting. It's an added dimension to the sex that we have.
Well, I mean, for me, lots of people, I'm a very dominant woman, clearly. Career, everything dominant. I'm very assertive, very opinionated. Everyone thinks I would be a dominatrix, and I am the complete opposite. So I'm like, when it comes to my relationships with my partner, I have to be the submissive one. I want to be the one that's tied up. I almost want to have no control. I need to relinquish my control to my man, right? And that's what gets me off, is having someone else dominate. But it has to be respectful dominate. Some guys have not really understood the assignment and just being a controlling arsehole. Whereas I'm like, no, it has to be the pain, pleasure thing. Yeah. But I just find it so interesting that it's so opposite to what I am as a person with my BDSM fetish, so to speak, in the bedroom.
I think many of us have a masculine and a feminine energy within us. I'm using masculine and feminine as a form of energy, not referring to gender.
Yep.
Yes, but all of us have this kind of masculine and feminine energy in us. And the masculine energy, like in us, would crave to be in control, would crave for us to take charge in terms of the work. And when it comes to feminine energy, many of us crave to be taken care of. Many of us crave to express this feminine energy in a way that we like art. We appreciate the finer things in life. And yeah, everybody has a mix of this masculine and feminine energy. Masculine to take charge, feminine to take care of other people. And this is how we express ourselves in everyday life. For example, maybe at work, you feel you have more masculine energy. You like to be the bossy one. You like assigning roles. You like taking care of timelines. However, when it comes to in the bedroom, back at home with your partner, you just want your feminine self to take over. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
All of us have this mix of energies between us.
And so, yeah, I guess in that way, I want to know how you became a dominatrix, because obviously that's your masculine energy coming through. So how, I know how let me tell you the story as how I got into BDSM. I was in London, met a guy, he was my boss, very cliche, and he was the one that slowly introduced the submissive dominant aspect into the bedroom, but did it very slowly. I was really only 21, and then I realized I loved it. So since then, if I hadn't have met him, I don't know whether I would have explored that. So it was not me going one day thinking, oh, I'd love to be tied up. It was him saying, hey, like, how would you feel doing this? So it was someone else bringing that part out of me. So yeah, how did you discover this side to you?
For me, because I grew up in a dual income family, that means when I was growing up, my parents weren't always at home for me. I'll be out at work. So I would come home after school to an empty house. So growing up in my earlier days, I actually craved for somebody to take care of me as a form of parental figure. So of course, when I was slightly older, I turned to the internet, and like your parents will always tell us, don't meet strangers from the internet. But as rebellious teenagers, we always do. Yeah, so that's where I was looking for a dominant older man who would take care of me physically as well as emotionally. So that's where I stumbled upon some of these earlier days of BDSM social networking sites.
Right.
Caller Space, I think that's what it was called. Of course, it's not around today anymore. So I didn't know that the internet was such a dangerous place. And of course, social media about 10 years ago wasn't so popular, wasn't so developed. It's not like the robust communities that we have today with vetting, with vouching. Yeah, so on the earlier days of the internet, earlier days of social media, you don't really know who are the real people, who are the fake people, who are the reputable doms, who are the people that you can play with, who are the dangerous people that you shouldn't play with. Okay, so my earlier few doms that I played with were actually bad experiences. I actually sort of got abused by some of them during my earlier few sessions. So there was this one particular session I remember very vividly. At the start, we did quite a fair bit of kinks, things that we agreed to do on, such as there was spanking, there was hair pulling, there was use of nipple clamps, there was slapping, there was a bit of humiliation. I mean, these were totally fine with me because these were the things I negotiated for before the play. And of course, there was rough sex, of course. And towards the end of the session, my dom wasn't pleased with my performance, maybe because I didn't give him a good blowjob. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty good at that. That's not the point. That's not the point of this conversation.
Side note, Ashley is really good at that.
No, that's not the point of that. So at the end of the session, he wasn't pleased with my performance. So what he told me to do was, he told me to kneel down in the corner of his room. He drew a circle, told me to stay inside the corner, not to step out of it. So he took his laptop, opened Skype and pointed it towards me and told me, if you step out of the circle, I'll see you through Skype and then I'll come back and punish you again. So back then I was young. I thought that this was how a BDSM dynamic should be like. I thought that as a sub, if my dom wanted me to do certain things, I had to take it. I thought that was a sort of a rite of passage for a sub, and I just thought that that's how the entire BDSM dynamic should be like. Yeah, so I really just knelt there in the corner until we came back home for about 1 hour later.
What?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm fucking angry about that. Because also, I think that's the problem as well with the domination submissive thing, is it can then venture into actual abuse. And it's such a murky waters for this. Like, what is respectful? What's not respectful? And people repeatedly take the piss. And actually, it's that there is that element of, are you a dominant or are you just a controlling power play cunt, basically?
Yes.
Which he was. But what I also find interesting is I'm sitting here talking to you as a dominatrix, but you started off as a submissive.
Yes.
So when you're that age, you felt the need, because you were alone at home, and correct me if I'm wrong, you felt the need for that older nurturing time, and your natural instinct was that you are a submissive, and that turned you on as well. Okay, and then your doms did stuff like this to you. And what was this in your teen years?
No, I was in my college days back then.
Right.
About 20 years old.
Oh, okay. But also still, like, I guess, navigating your way through. And that's the thing, is if you don't know, if, like, I feel like I would probably think, oh, is this normal? Is this part of it?
Yes, I think that sex education in Singapore is not that thorough enough. Sex education in Singapore just teaches abstinence, or rather sometimes the importance of safe sex, but they don't teach sufficiently about navigating consent. I think this element of consent has been left out enough in our sexual education that I think as part of BDSM practitioners like me, I think we need to reinforce the idea of consent. For example, if I was to take you out on a date, if you consent to me bringing you out on a date, that doesn't mean that you consent to me bringing you home for sex. For example, if you were to allow me to hold your hands, that doesn't mean that I will allow that you will allow me to slap you on the ass when you walk out of the door. So consent is a multi-tier process, and it must be enthusiastically given. And yet it can also be withdrawn at the same time. I think notions like this in consent, if it's taught up in sex education in schools, will help us navigate our adult years a lot better.
I don't think it's just Singapore. I have to say that, because obviously I grew up in the UK, and it's the same. It was like, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. This is a condom, don't get pregnant. STDs, if you have sex, you get an STD. Don't get pregnant. Off you go. Go enjoy your PE class. Right? So even like narcissism and personality disorders and that mental health, I think all that comes into play as well. Like, we should be educated on it, and I totally get it. It definitely is not just Singapore. I think it's a global issue, and it's definitely something I would have loved to. If I had the same kind of education at that age, like what I know now, my life would have been so different. The men I would have dated would be so different. I mean, I got to 35 and I finally understood, but fuck me, it took me a while. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. But so let's take it back then. So you're having these like experiences as a submissive, and then what happens from then on in?
So like what I mentioned previously, I had that experiences in which there were consent violation. However, because I was young, I was naive, I didn't know that this was actually wrong until I started to grow older. Then I started to go to the local communities, the parties. I started to meet with better people, my exes. Then I realized, then when I started to describe my experience to them, then I realized that what these things were actually a consent violation. That the community shouldn't be brought up. The community, the values of the collective communities should be on consent, informed king, and respect. This is how our community should be molded. So, I mean, I as to how I got into a dom, I think that'll be interesting for you. But was that at that same point in time, I was actually becoming a manager in my vanilla workplace. I started to lead a team. Then what I realized was meaningful to me was that being a manager isn't just about ensuring that your team, your juniors meet timelines, meet deadlines, submit the work that is of a certain quality. Being a manager, being a mentor is also about ensuring that they are properly taught. And when they leave the workplace, they can say that, hey, I was actually mentored by Ashley. And I think that's the meaningful part about being a leader, is to actually to nurture and to lead other people. And that actually reflected how I started how I started to be in the kink scene, because I found it meaningful to help new subs along their journey through kink, to tell them that these are the values that you should be adhering to. This is how you should stay safe.
Yeah.
This is how you should negotiate a scene with your partner. Like, for example, if I'm getting into a scene with you, this is the things that I want to do. These are my limits.
Yeah.
And then how do you develop that mutual scene with your partner? How do you communicate that? And these are very valuable life lessons that I found it meaningful for me to help new subs along that journey. And there's this quote that I like quite a lot, is that we make a living through how much we earn, but we truly only make a life through how much we give. And I found that very meaningful, not just in my vanilla workplace, but also for me in my kink scene. So back then, when I started to become that more mature person, eventually it pushed me to becoming a switch, and eventually become a dominant.
It blows my mind, because like, for me, I could think of nothing worse, because I'm such a submissive. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's what gets me off. That's what I love. And the idea of going the other way, I would be good at it, I'm sure, but it's just not a piece of me. So for you to go from one to the other, because I feel like usually your personalities go more towards one or the other, and that's just how it is. Before you get into the change, which one do you prefer? Being a sub or
right now?
Yeah.
Right now, I would still say that I'm a switch.
Right.
Prior to COVID, I used to have a play partner, a dom partner that I will play with regularly.
Right.
But of course, after the entire COVID pandemic, he moved back to Taiwan, and we haven't actually been in touch. But of course, right now, if I was to look into things, I would have a highest. If I was to be a submissive again, I think my standards would be pretty high right now. Because, hey, guy, you need to be higher than my standards. You need to be better than me to be able to dominate. Jokes aside. But yeah, I still identify as a switch. But yeah, I don't think I have issues swinging between one side. Maybe being a submissive, doing play again. But
right.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're literally my new favorite interesting human ever. So how did you become a dominatrix? Like, how do you even start? How did you do that?
So, like what I mentioned, when I'm from a sub, I started to explore. I also wanted to explore my dom side. Because after seeing things that my dom has done to me, after going to play parties, after learning the ropes literally when it comes to Shibari, and I started to figure around and tinker with things around my own. And then I started to be a bit more curious, and that's where I started to explore being a switch.
Right.
So I would have some play partners, I would have some people that were still dom too, and then after a while, I found it quite interesting to be a dominant, particularly for me, because it's the intellectual challenge that I found it interesting. How do we, for example, if you were a sub and then you come to me and then we discuss our limits, discuss what we're interested to, and it becomes a challenge, or rather an intellectual exercise for me to understand you better, to be able to crack what turns you on, what motivates you. And I found that quite interesting and challenging to me as being a dom, to be able to crack this puzzle in you.
So you did it, once, and then said, yeah, I'm going to do this forever? You've been in this BDSM online community, and you go like, hey guys, I'm a dom, so anyone?
I still go to regular play parties around in Singapore, and I also do have a social media presence in which I share photos about my sessions, I write about my experience, and yeah, that sort of attracts people into me, people who are interested to play. And of course, when that happens, we just sit down again, like what I mentioned, we discuss about limits, we discuss about consent, and if you are fit, then we will arrange something.
So tell me about your first ever experience then as a dominatrix. Like, what did you wear? Were you nervous? Did you feel like pressure? How was it?
Of course, I still remember my first session. It was somebody I connected with on an online BDSM social networking site called FatLife. And he said that he was interested in playing. He was interested in impact play. So impact play is the use of impact toys to hit or to impact somebody's skin. It's usually the buttocks, or it could be the thighs, it could be the palms, it could be the soles, and it's usually done with toys such as paddles, or it could be the back of it could be your palm, it could be a cane, or it could be a whip. So I remember that session was that he was interested in impact play, and impact play was something that I was introduced to first, and when I became a sub, and that was my natural first inclination to pick up the cane.
Right.
Yes, and I remember during my first session, I was pretty nervous because coming from a sub, all I need to know was to dress something that was sexy for my dominant.
Right.
Then as a dom, what do I wear?
Exactly. That's what I mean.
That
Like,
was part that was confusing me. What do I wear?
yeah, because I'm like, I know what. You're now in control, and then how? So
How do I dress?
Yeah.
To express that kind of control. But of course, I got the fashion sense of it slowly along the way. But yeah, so I just dressed up in a white blouse and black skirt. Of course, that wasn't my best outfit. But yeah, I just put it together.
I had like latex catsuit in my head idea. You know, like or I don't know, like a full length PVC thing. But blouse and skirt, yeah.
I eventually got the fashion sense sorted out, but that was after many, many months. Yeah, so the session happened, and then we sat down to discuss what were his limits, what did he like, what didn't he like, how would he express his safe words if he was feeling that the pain was too much, how do we pace it out, what type of implements does he want to go through. So there was the entire negotiation session, the entire chat session before was actually longer than play session itself, particularly because we were both new and we wanted to get this right. And before the entire play session, I was actually running through the entire scenario in my mind because I was afraid to do something wrong. I was afraid that if I tied him a different way, then I would hit him in the wrong way. I was afraid of all this.
Yeah. What about the safety? Like, I'd be terrified to, I don't know. What if you over choke them or the rope? I don't know, because you hear all these horror stories of things going wrong.
Yes, and yes, so that also brings me to another important aspect about BDSM is about informed risk. That all of us going into the scene should be informed about the risk that is relevant to this particular kink that we are exploring. Mm-hmm. For example, choking is something many of us like in bed, even for vanilla folks. But when it comes to, for example, if you want to do choking with me as a dom, I need to go into this informed about the risks.
Yeah.
And you as a sub should go into this scene knowing that these are the risks and what could go wrong. How do you ensure that your dom knows how to do it properly? For example, when it comes to choking, it's not just pressing the windpipe. That is actually an airway choke, and that's dangerous. So when it comes to choking, how we should choke properly is to identify the two arteries, the two blood vessels next to the side of your neck and press down. That is a blood choke. That doesn't restrict the flow of oxygen to your brain. It just restricts the flow of blood to your brain, creating that kind of high effect. And if the dominant doesn't know the difference between a blood choke and airway choke, that's going to be very dangerous for both parties. And that's the informed risk that is essential to BDSM.
Yeah, I've just totally recounted in my head as you said that all the memories of
being choked the wrong way.
The complete wrong way.
Yeah, I also got choked the wrong way. It wasn't fun.
Complete wrong way. Like scarily so the wrong way. Okay, so you had your first session and then you decided, right, this is what I'm going to do. I really enjoy it and I'm going to keep hanging out with the submissives and having fun, yeah?
I think for me, what's meaningful is about building a community.
Right.
Building a community of people, of dominants, of submissives, of kinksters, that they can come over and totally and truly embrace this safe space for them. That they can express their vulnerabilities, they can express their identities in this space that is non-judgmental and is safe for them. And I find that very rewarding about being a dominant all these years.
Do you have any guilt or, I don't know, any concern if any of these submissives have partners?
I guess sometimes this inevitably happens, particularly because I'm also guilty of that. When I was partnered many years ago, I did also have some play on the side. So how all of us manage this is that we need to manage proper communications with our partners. We need to express that this is what I am interested in. This is who I am as a person. This is how I identify with. These are some of my kinks. And is there any way that we can reconcile this or even introduce your other partner or even compromise when it comes to things? And if that doesn't happen, how do we manage that? Respectfully and maturely as an adult, rather than to do it on the side without telling your partners. But of course, when I do have people, kinksters or subs coming in to share with me that they are actually partnered, they are feeling guilty about it, what I would tell them is, how do you manage proper communications with your partner, and how should they approach this subject with their partner?
Yeah. I mean, way back when, the boss, my first dominant, he definitely explained that the girlfriend before was just completely turned off by any kind of pain, right? So she wouldn't even want to be choked. And I think that bothered him. Like, he loved her, but obviously sex is a big part, right, of a relationship. And if you're not being fulfilled, or there's an aspect that you want to explore and your partner's like, oh no, that's then yeah. And I think that's why I was like, sweet shot for him when he found me.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So then because he got to do all of this, I signed a contract and everything. I don't know if you've ever done that.
Contract?
Yeah. So part of our boundaries at the beginning was he basically said, I'm not going to sleep with you until you fill in this contract. And it was a list of all of the stuff. And then there was a giving, receiving, and neither column. So I had to... some of the shit on this list, Ashley, I panicked, right? I literally got the contract, went back with my girlfriends and was like, we need to go out for a drink. And we were just sat there looking at it and I was like, what on the fuck is going on? But he was like, nothing will shock me. All I want is honesty. You are filling this list in before we have sex. And he wouldn't sleep with me. And, I did loosely fill it in. But yeah, that was part of our safety aspect, as he knew my heart passes. And then obviously we had a safe word. I used it a couple of times and he stopped immediately. And obviously if someone uses a safe word and the other person doesn't, that's a complete consent violation. That's the basic foundations here, right?
Oh, seems like you had quite a good experience back then.
Oh, it was fucking fantastic. I couldn't even tell you, girl, how much I want it back. And every guy I meet, I'm like...
Your higher standards are really
yeah, Dom, and they're like, oh no. Or my fiance was just not very good at it. And I tried it once. I just thought, this is not... I feel bad. This is not working. Because also they don't... It's they do it for 2 minutes and then it just goes back to vanilla sex. Or they become controlling beyond the bedroom. I'm like, you haven't grasped this. Yeah. So no, I did. I think I had a very, very good 2-year dom, and that I've been trying to find that ever since. Because even we worked together, and it was at work. He was the boss. At home, he was the boss. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. We were, sexually very compatible, but we kept it. Everything was above play and respectful. So your story you told me about that circle makes my skin crawl. That's horrific. Did he try and see you again?
Of course, we drifted after a while because particularly we had different priorities in life. It was just play. It wasn't a thumbs-up relationship.
No, but I'm assuming he tried to... I don't know, because that is abusive, isn't it?
Yeah, looking back, I would say it is, but it's just part of our growing up days that we fall down and we learn.
We do. We absolutely do. So what I'd love to know, I guess, is what's the bit that you love about being a dominatrix? What's your favorite part?
I think what I shared earlier is actually this journey together with subs to help them nurture body positivity.
Yeah.
And for example, there's this one particular submissive who came in to me. She was a biological male, but of course, she was born a biological male. So when he came to me, she was identified. She had certain levels of gender dysphoria in me.
Right.
That the parents could not accept her gender identity, and she was also a bit confused. Am I a male? Am I a female? How do I navigate life like this? Yes. So what was meaningful to me was that I could help her be more positive about her outlook in life, help her embrace her femininity. And it's submissives like this. It's like journeys like this with people which fills my heart and makes me feel that, hey, this is a meaningful thing that I like, and this is what that truly has kept me interested about being a dominant, about the lives that I can touch. But when it comes to, of course, like what I mentioned, it's also about the puzzle. Because previously I was working in advertising, and every time there's a new brief coming in, to crack that new brief and then submit a great tender and then reading it, that's a thrill that I lived for in my vanilla workplace. And similarly in Kink, I find it thrilling to be able to meet new people, to understand them truly, get into their minds, and then help them. And I found that quite interesting. But I think as a Dom, what I'm truly interested in is, again, Shibari. As a form of kinks, maybe that's what you are. That's why, for those who are interested, I like Shibari, I like rope bondage, I like impact play, I like making subs, putting people in very vulnerable and helpless state, and watching them squirm and watching them try to reclaim control of themselves. And of course, I like elaborate role plays.
And it empowers you, I take it.
It's empowering, and it's of course it's fun, and it's fulfilling.
And so do you ever because what the person you just talked about, so they're telling you quite intimate stuff, right? Does it ever blend into your normal life? I.e., do you WhatsApp them, or do you have boundaries where we only talk or in those sessions, and other than that, then it's nothing? Or are you friends?
Yes, actually for me, I still maintain good relationships with many of them, and some of them has actually evolved into friendship. Like we'll meet outside for dinner, we go hiking, and of course, when they're hiking, when we're in public, he doesn't address me as Goddess Ashley, because that'd be weird for everyone around me. He just addresses me as Ashley. Yeah, nobody needs to know what happens in the bedroom, and yeah, we send each other memes. Of course, I have better memes. Then,
okay.
But we also maintain that relationship, and I find it quite interesting.
Same. I thought you were going to tell me absolutely strictly just in the sessions, and other than that, we don't.
No. I think that would be, but I think that won't be very nice. And of course, all these are great people. If they were to entrust me with their secrets, I have to take it and appreciate them for the trust that they put in me. But also one thing that I would like to share, which is also quite interesting, is this concept of empathy fatigue. Because sometimes they come to me with their burdens, with their traumas, with their anxieties. And of course, even if I was to keep on listening and hearing them out, it eventually tires me out, because there's so much empathy that I can only give. And of course, when it happens, I know I'll just stop replying them for a day, and then I'll just revert back to just sending them memes and taking a break from listening to their stories. But of course, when I'm back, I'll be back listening to them and talking to them.
Yeah, I have quite similar experience with the podcast and people reaching out to me. Sometimes it just gets quite a lot, because it is someone's life story, and I have to be there for them, and I love being there for them. But then it gets to the point where I'm depleted. So I'm I can't. Or say I'm going through something, I'm being cheated on and I'm dealing with this. So it's very hard to do that and be there for all these people, right? Because you are only one person. But you are multi-layered one person. I love it. Literally my favourite person I've spoken to in ages. So I could literally talk to you all day. So do you think you're going to continue doing this for forever? Or is it going to get to a point where you're I'm tired, or, is it going to be a point when you cut it off?
I think right now I'm having a good time juggling between my vanilla workplace, as I'm a freelance digital strategist. I freelance it in my working hours, and of course I love this part of my life in which I get to meet and touch the lives of many other people. And right now I have this very good balance between my friends, my vanilla work, my Kink life, and of course I'm not partnered, unfortunately or fortunately. So right now I have this equilibrium in my life that I'm able to balance everything. Maybe one day when things get out of balance again, or maybe for example I get more projects, or I get a new job, or I get a partner, and then I may stop eventually, but that's not now.
Fair.
Yeah.
And so I guess what do you personally feel about Singapore and the sex scene here, and sexual freedom here? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think Singapore is still way too conservative, and that is actually reflected in the way that sexual education is being taught. Our sexual education is very focused on heteronormative sexual relationships and intimacy, that sex should only be for procreation purposes, or maybe for recreational purposes with only your wedded partner. And this is a lot too restrictive, because it teaches people that anything outside this is deviant.
Yeah.
And that's not normal, because if you just focus just on sexual purity, anything outside this standard deviation is seen as weird.
Yeah.
And that will end up people just labeling people like you and me as weird or unnatural, and this would just end up I am weird. Like this, I am weird and unnatural, but I'm fine with that.
But yeah, there's a layer of shame, right?
Yeah, they develop sexual shame. Like for example, that my submissive, which I mentioned, that she identifies as she was a cisgendered male.
Okay.
He would just if this society would just label her as weird or unnatural, and she will eventually develop sexual shame about her identities or even gender dysphoria, and that's not healthy for anyone growing up.
Agreed. And you think kink, I guess, helps teach us certain aspects of like being more open-minded, creating safe spaces for people, body positivity.
Yes.
So you're very pro kink and BDSM. Me fucking too. So before I let you go, Ashley, I do have one more question.
Okay.
You, as a dominatrix, you're only allowed to pick like one toy, like your one favorite object to use. What do you pick?
For me, I would pick this mahogany wood paddle. It's a paddle that has my name engraved on it. Yes, Goddess Ashley, and it was a gift from one of my co-doms, and because it's a gift, I appreciate the value of the gift behind it. And that's just my favorite toy to date. Of course, it's a heavy paddle and nobody can take it. What's yours then?
Mine would have to be flogger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Obviously, if I'm talking about like the dom sub vibe. No, because I like a lead and a collar. And a bed restraint. I don't think I can pick one. It's actually a really hard question, isn't it? No, I just.
Why are you posing me hard questions when you can't answer it?
I don't know. Okay, lead and collar. But then I do like a very simple blindfold, right? Because when you cut off one of your senses, or like a gag or a blindfold or whatever, it really heightens everything else. So as a submissive, one of the first things I discovered was he would start it off with just light handcuffs and a blindfold. And then I was like, oh.
Blindfolds are boring because the dominant doesn't get to see your expression. You just see one black patch.
Yeah, true. But
next time I'll show you my one-way blindfold. It's a one-way blindfold because you as a wearer can't see out. But me as a dominant, I can see in.
What?
So I can look at your eyes.
How?
And you can't see me.
The fuck have I not heard about this?
I'll show you next time.
Yeah, I'm like, send me the link, I will buy it. I mean, I've got to find a dom first. I mean, the search is still on. It takes a while. Oh, Ashley, you've been an absolute pleasure. I really hope everyone, I feel very empowered and sexually charged after this episode. And I guess just say someone's listening in, they want to find you. How do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, actually. It's _Goddess Ashley.
_Goddess Ashley on Twitter. And they can slide into your DMs. Yeah, I mean, even if you just want to chat to Ashley more, because I could definitely do this for hours and hours. I just think you are so interesting, so empowering, and really thank you for coming on and being so honest.
Thank you for the time.
Oh, my pleasure. Especially sharing your stories of your vulnerabilities and things like that. I think it's really important to do the whole experience, not just like, oh, it's so fun, everything's great. So yeah, you're very real, very honest, and I think you're fucking awesome.
Thank you so much. You're awesome too.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Can't Keep My Mouth Shut podcast. Produced and hosted by me, Nick Selena, and recorded in the Splice Cast Studios in Singapore. I'm available to listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and all major podcast listening apps. Do subscribe to enjoy a new episode every Monday evening. Please do give me a 5-star review. It helps other people also find my podcast. For more content and features to read, you can check out my website, nickselena.com. That's nixalina.com. I'm also on social media. Simply search @Nixalina, Nixalina, to find me. Don't be shy. Come say hi.